Good morning, Miss Evelyn. Miss Betty. Good morning,
Good
guys.
morning.
Unmute yourself, Miss Evelyn.
Got you.
Good morning, Miss Shirley. Hi, Miss Shirley. Unmute yourself.
All righty.
Yourself. Good morning, Miss Valerie. Unmute yourself, Miss Valerie.
Morning.
Miss Shirley, unmute yourself. Good morning, Miss Valerie. How are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm good. We've got well, actually it's 10:30. Again, good morning once again, and welcome to Health Secrets for Seniors. Today, we're going to be talking about the role of the grandparent, primarily in the African-American family. Grandparents' Day is coming up. It's this weekend. I believe it's this Sunday. And that holiday, it's not a big holiday like Thanksgiving or Christmas, but it is a recognized day. It was the first Grandparents' Day was back in 1973 in West Virginia. And it was the idea of this lady, Marion McQuaid from West Virginia. She had 15 kids, Jesus. But she began the campaign for a day to honor her grandparents back in 1970. And then in 1978, President Jimmy Carter signed the proclamation making it Grandparents' Day. And did you know we have an official flower for Grandparents' Day? And the flower is the forget-me-not.
Oh,
It's even an official grandparent song, which I tried to find this song, but I wasn't able to find it. It's called Grandpa and Grandma by somebody named Johnny Prill. I don't think it made the big top 10, the hit parade, but anyway, that's how Grandparents' Day got started. There are, within our community, within the Black community, grandparents are so vital in the African-American family. And I'm assuming that outside of Miss Sparkman, because she's a baby yet, the rest of you may be grandparents. Are you all grandparents? Miss Evelyn, are you a grandparent?
Yes.
Miss Valerie,
Yes.
are you a grandparent?
No, I don't have any children.
Okay. Hey, I'll talk to you about that off there. That's all right. Betty Coleman. I know Miss Betty, yeah,
Yes.
we know her grandbaby. Miss Shirley, are you a grandparent?
great grand.
Oh, wow.
Miss
Great
Shirley.
grandparent. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Okay. Grandparents are so vital within the African-American community because in a lot of families, the grandparents live in the same household as their grandchildren. And actually, the number of children being raised by grandparents or even great-grandparents like yourself, Miss Shirley, is higher in the group of African Americans than any other major racial ethnic group. Now, the reasons behind that are different, but one of the main reasons is you can trace it all the way back to slavery. Because a lot of times during slavery, the mother, the father, they were either they'd been sold off They were in the fields working. They were at master house, letting master put his feet on his back. All that kind of stuff. So because of that, those persons, black women, had to step up, and it's always been within our culture to take care of the child. If you see them doing something wrong, I mean, some of my fondest memories is the people in the neighborhood, the other women in the neighborhood, even though, and I grew up with my grandmother, the other women in the neighborhood, they stepped up. If they saw you doing wrong, they'd tell on your behind. Before you could get in the house to tell the story, they already told your mother or your grandmama, I saw she was doing this, and I tore her butt up, and I'm just letting you know. That was the way
word
it was.
gets back home before you do.
Right.
That's right.
Grandparents were there. We were there to take up the slack as our parents went out to work. Our grandparents also were the ones that instilled the morals, the values, manners, all those things that as our parents were busy working, trying to survive, grandmama, granddaddy, big mama, whatever you call it, they were right there to pick up that slack, to give you that religion, to give you that foundation of God. Most of the time it fell back on the grandparents. And even today, in these times that we're going through, it still falls back a lot on the grandparents, okay? Most people have, especially the black family, the reason the relationships are more substantial with the grandmothers is because of the high mortality rate of our black men. They don't live long enough to get to be a granddaddy a lot of times. They get incarcerated. They don't take, it goes all the way back to, they don't even take care of themselves. You know, we always go through this whole process of talking to our brothers about going to the doctor, taking good care of themselves. And a lot of times they don't do that. So the relationships with children and grandmothers is stronger because they're there. And a lot of our black men just are not there, and they don't live long enough to be a granddaddy. You know, the mortality rate, because black women live longer than black men. In general, women live longer than men, period, even in our other racial groups. So that is one of the, any adult woman can be a grandmother, because within the African-American community, you will find people in families that's not blood relatives, but you look on them as a blood relative. Miss Annie that lived next door. You went to Miss Annie's house when you couldn't get in your house. You done lost your key. Mama said, go on, if you can't get out, go on over Miss Annie's house and stay there till I get back there, till I get home. These were people who were maybe not blood relatives, but they stood in the gap as a grandmother figure or auntie figure. And there's so many different names. Everybody now as grandparents, I know because I'm guilty of this myself. When my daughter first said she was having a baby, I was like, look, first of all, I don't want to be nobody grandma. That was my first thought. And then my next thought was, I don't want to be called grandma, because I felt like that made me, you know, in my mind, I'm like, I'm too young to be a grandmother. You're right, I'm in my 50s. I'm almost too young to be a grandmother. So people now have all kind of little cutie names for grandma. See, back in the day, it was Big Mama, Grandmama, but now you got your GGs.
Gigi.
I want to be a GG.
You want to be a GG?
Got
Okay.
GG. I want to be a GG.
Good.
And you got your nanas.
Nanas, okay.
Mima.
Yeah,
BB.
yeah, absolutely. I wanted them to call me G-Mommy, but they never did, because my daughter called my mother Gammy. And so they just picked up, you know, they never let you name yourself, really. You know, your grandchildren just sort of go with, and they call both my mother and I Gammy, and somehow we seem to know who they're talking to. You know, when they'll look at me and say, well, Gammy, so, and then they'll say, well, I'm going in Gammy's room. Then I know they're not talking about me. They're talking about the other Gammy. So the relationship that we have with our grandchildren as African-Americans, between the manners, the values, morals, and religion, that plays a big part in setting that foundation for our young people to try to sustain. And now as we're going through this pandemic, I feel like our grandparents are needed more than ever. A lot of you all may not be seeing your seeing your grandchildren right now because of the pandemic. And that in itself may be adding to some little, as Michelle Obama said low-grade depression because you may miss them. You know, if they were in and out of your house all the time, you might miss them, or they're not calling to see how you're doing, even if they didn't live with you, they used to be by the house. So keep that in mind, that this too shall pass, and in the future they'll be back over your house tearing up something like mine, pulling the curtains down or something. Okay. We talked about that Black women have always continued to practice an extended form of parenting, and that is what I think is missing in our culture today. If you look at the millennials, and I think the next group after that is the Generation Xers or something.
Gen Z.
They don't have that backbone foundation of the quote big mama, of grandmother. You see grandmothers who are like 35 years old, they still out there getting their twerk on. And I think it makes a big difference in our children as to how they perceive women and how they should perceive being a woman the correct way. You know, it was a time, you know, my grandmother, you know, you better not be cutting up in church. You know, you better be sitting on that pew and shut your mouth. But now, you see, half time you can't even get them to come back to the church, which is the foundation that we really, I personally, this is my personal belief, I believe that we need that foundation.
Yes.
You know, particularly in times like this, we have to rely on our strength, and our strength comes from our roots, and our roots are our grandparents who have done so much for us by paving the way. You know, even though I always tell people grandparents now don't look like grandparents of 50 years ago. Number one, 50 years ago, you were considered elderly at 45 and 50 years old. We are living longer and looking good for a long time. Okay, so I'm like one of those grandparents that say, hey, don't put me down to make nothing. Don't put my name on no list to bake nothing. Tell me something I can go to Kroger and pick up. You know, the potato chips, the cups, something like that. So you see a big deal, because a lot of grandparents are still working. So that being able to, you know, keep your grandchildren, just like I love the relationship. Where are you, Miss Betty? Are you still on him? Miss Betty has with Melly is your granddaughter, right?
Great grand.
Great grand. I love the relationship. And Melly is going to love that as she gets older. She will always look back. I went to work with my great grandmama. You know, and I knew all her coworkers at her job. You know, she got no, she just knew she didn't need her grandmama to walk her to my office. She said, I'm going around there to Miss Buffy's office. I'll be back. So those are the kind of things that we want to look for as being grandparents. Anybody like to chime in now? I don't like to do all the talking. You know, I love for people to talk back to me. Hi, Mr. Gurley. I didn't see you over there. Unmute yourself, Mr. Gurley. Unmute yourself, Mr. Gurley.
Hey, how are you?
How you doing, Mr. Gurley? I didn't see you over there. How's everything?
I'm all right. How are you? I've been listening to you.
Are you a grandparent?
Yes.
How many grands do you have?
4.
4. Okay, have you been seeing them much during the pandemic?
No, they're not here. I haven't seen them since Christmas. They're in Florida.
Oh, okay, okay. Do you talk to them regularly on the phone? Huh?
Oh, yeah, we talk all the time, yeah.
Okay.
I can't go there, so. Yeah.
Okay. Miss Evelyn, you said you had grandchildren, right?
Right.
How
But
many?
I'm an older grandmother because I have 2 3.5-year-old twins.
Wow.
The twins. Half.
Yeah.
So I became a grandmother after 70.
Oh my goodness. That is
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank
That
you.
is wonderful.
Yeah.
That is absolutely
Our
wonderful.
relationship is a little different. I don't keep them that much sometimes, but my son and his daughter and his wife, they usually come over on Sundays and I fix dinner for them. And I have a little treat. They're always looking for me to give me, where are the cookies? I say, after you eat. And so they always look for a treat when they come over.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Miss
As
Shirley,
I
do
said,
you
they call me BB.
BB? Okay,
BB.
BB.
BB is
Yes,
Swahili
yeah,
for
yeah.
grandmother.
Yes, you
Okay.
never heard
Oh,
that?
okay.
We
Yes,
call him about
That's
a
nice.
yes.
BB. I like
Yeah.
that.
Hello?
Yes, BB. What about you, Miss Shirley? Do you have grands?
I have 5 grands and 4 great grands.
Wow, wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
What a great
Okay.
legacy. And Miss
Yes.
Callie, I know you have some grandchildren.
Yep, I have 2. One is 2 years old and one will be 1 year old next month. And I haven't seen him since the pandemic started.
Wow. Unmute
Oh.
yourself, Miss Peggy.
Excuse me.
I was saying
Can you hear
unmute
me?
yourself.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Miss
I can
Gladys,
hear
unmute
you.
yourself. Murray, unmute yourself. Murray, I don't know whether this is a miss or mister, but unmute yourself. Hey, Miss Sally Dawson, coming on board. Peggy, don't you have grandchildren? Yes.
I have a 32-year-old granddaughter and a 6-year-old great grand. You've met her. You've seen
Yeah.
her. Yeah. And then I have another great grand on the way.
All right.
Oh,
Congratulations.
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 In about 10 days.
Oh, my
Wow.
goodness.
Nice.
Oh, maybe they'll be
Congratulations.
born on my birthday,
Yeah.
Okay, hopefully. When is your
Well,
birthday?
happy early
September
birthday.
17th.
Well,
Oh,
happy
okay.
birthday.
All right.
Thank
Well,
you.
she's
I
due
want,
on the 15th.
okay,
Oh, okay.
Okay.
good.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted the other African-American name for grandfather is Babu. I may not be
Babu.
pronouncing it right. It's
Babu.
B-A-B-U, Babu.
Mhm.
Babu.
That's the African-American Swahili for grandfather. And BB
Oh, okay.
is Swahili for grandmother, or I hope I pronounced this right, or Nyanya. Nyanya is also another Swahili term for grandmother. Okay.
Wow.
So anybody want to be
Oh,
cute?
they messed that one up real bad.
Miss Valerie, I say to you, you may say you don't have any biological grandchildren, but I know that you are a nurturer, and there's some kid out there that probably thinks you their grandmama. Or some child you've been kind to or nice to.
Well, I was a teacher, so there were kids.
There you go, right there.
Yeah,
There
but I'm
you
not.
go.
I had no biological children, so I'm not a grandmother.
But you were a mother to
Oh,
many.
you raised a lot of kids.
Well, yeah, I cared, but yeah.
You cared for plenty of them in that regard.
Mhm.
Buffy,
Yes.
I think that too, although I don't have grandchildren yet, but I think about my relationship with my grandparents, and my oldest son is out of the home and he comes back, and every time I would visit my grandmother, she would always give us something. You could never leave her house without her giving you something. And I find the same way with my sons. I have picked that up.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
matter what, even it doesn't matter what it is. He is not leaving my house without something from me to
Exactly.
take back to his house.
Exactly.
Miss Muriel, how are you?
Yeah.
Do you have grandchildren?
No, I'm like, I think she said Valerie.
Valerie, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like Valerie. I didn't have children and I don't have grandchildren, but I'm auntie and grandma
Exactly.
and mama
Yeah.
to lots of
Oh,
children in
That's
my
how we go
life.
back to the fluidness of the
Yeah.
Black community, how we look out for any child. And I just wish that the younger generation, because see now, I always say I used to work for Parks and Rec, and I worked with children all the time then. And as the years went by, I saw where the parents were getting more, well, what you said about my child, what you do to my, instead of, you know, they look at the adult, instead of saying, looking at the wisdom that's coming from this person trying to help you, they automatically assume that the little brat is telling the truth.
Well,
Uh-huh.
I used to do
That's real true.
Yeah.
teaching.
Yeah.
I used to do
I actually had a
substitute
parent
teaching.
tell me, well, that's what they do these days. That's the way they talk. Because I was
Yeah.
telling her what the child had said. Well, that's the way they talk now.
But you know what?
Why
I
are you
used
telling
to
me
do-
about it? You know, so what? You
I
know,
used to
that type
do
of attitude.
substitute teaching. And
Pardon?
I'm sorry, Valerie, I was going to say I used to do substitute teaching, and I would notice the rudeness sometimes in children. And I say, imagine if your mom was standing here and you talk like that. I said, would you want your mom to hear you talking like that? And one of them told me, well, my mama talk like that. And I was
Exactly.
like, okay. I said, but that doesn't mean you have to talk like that, because you're going to be in the world, and that's not how we do it. So, you know, it's just, we have to impart whatever wisdom that we have. And like Miss Terry was saying, she remembers her grandmother always giving them something. And my grandmother was the same way. And one thing I do remember to this day is cookie biscuits. My grandmother used to make biscuits for my grandfather, but for some reason hers were always thin. And whatever was left over, she would always have my grandfather bring them to us. And we would love her cookie biscuit.
Good. Miss Christine, you want to chime in?
Yes, I'm a grandmother and a great grandmother.
Oh.
I have eight grands and one great grand.
Wow.
Oh,
Congratulations.
And the
How about that?
grands range from age 1 day to 30 years.
You say one day?
Day.
Okay.
Oh.
Wow.
okay.
Go, Miss Christine. Well, you certainly don't like I said. Would grandparents have changed? Here's a question for you. Name a major television personality who owns her own television network and was raised by her grandparents. Who was that?
Oprah Winfrey.
Winfrey. Look how great she turned out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And name
Yes.
a recent president raised by his grandparents.
Barack
Barack
Obama.
Obama. You can't do any better than that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
Barack Obama
Right.
was raised by his grandparents?
Yes,
Yeah.
he was.
He was
Yes.
raised by his
Yes.
His
mother.
grandmother.
His grandparents.
His grandparents.
Oh, I thought he was raised by his mother. I didn't know that.
His
No.
mother
Uh-uh.
was still in school.
Yeah, and she traveled.
She traveled
Yeah.
a lot, but he stayed with his grandparents.
In Hawaii?
Mhm.
His grandparents-
Hawaii,
Okay.
yes.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know that.
So that is something that we should try as hard as we can to keep the spirit of the fluidity of the Black family, because grandparents are needed. Grandmothers and grandfathers, great-grandparents, we are needed. It may not seem like it now, but we are needed in the fluidity of our community, particularly now with all this horrible race relations.
Yes.
We still got to try to transmit to our children, our grandchildren, the right way. You know, we got to still try to do that. And we have so much knowledge and wisdom because we've been there, done that, seen that. You know, when people were talking about going to the streets, I was like, been there, done that. I'm too old to go on the streets now, but I'll put on my Black Lives Matter shirt. I will support you in other ways. You know, I don't have to do what I did 20 years ago to support you. And I think that if we keep those messages open and fluid with our kids, then the role of the grandparent, it will never die out. We will always need grandparents and aunties and
Yes.
big mama,
Yes.
glamour, and whatever nickname that your children or grandchildren decide to call you, you still need to possess the wit and strength and warmth and values that our ancestors gave us. I know my grandmother that lived down in the country, she always had food on the stove, and she lived in a one-room house with an outhouse in the country. But she always had food
Like
cooking
my
on that
grandmother.
stove to feed anybody and everybody that came by.
Yes.
Always
Yes.
enough.
And it always was enough. Hey, Miss Sally
Always
Dawson.
enough.
Yep.
Miss Gladys, you want to chime in, Miss Sally?
Yes. First of all, I have two grandchildren,
Great.
and I had two boys, and one of my boys had two boys. And my son is always getting on me because he says, "Mama, you don't treat them like you treated us."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well,
Yeah.
I had to make sure you came out right." I said, "That's your job to make sure these come out right, so I get to spoil these."
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
I think every grandparent gets that.
Right.
My daughter says it all the time. Mama used to knock my head clean off. Yeah. And now you let them do whatever they want. I say, yeah, I like them better than I like you, and keep moving. Get away around me.
Oh, I like them better.
Everybody enjoyed our discussion today. I wanted to talk about grandparents because I am one. And it's a role that I enjoy, being a grandparent,
Yes.
loving my grandchildren and seeing in them the future. And I hope that you all enjoyed our discussion today. I will be seeing everybody on Tuesday. Monday is Labor Day. So we will not be, am I correct? Is Miss Sparkman still on here?
Yes.
Right.
No,
I think she
but
went
that's
off.
but
But I
that's
believe
right.
we will be off Monday, but we'll be
Right.
back on the air on Tuesday.
Right.
So
Okay.
make sure that you, we will be having Health Secrets again on Tuesday. We're going to be talking about fall prevention because what month is it? September. September is National Fall Prevention Month. So we're going to be talking about that on Tuesday. So make sure you continue to tune in to the different classes. And the thing that, you know, what I found about Zoom, we are all so courteous to each other. You know, and it's a dying art, you know, that we can all be on here at one time talking, but everybody is so courteous to not be rude to one another. The gentleness of the
It's
spirit.
true.
Yes.
You know, and I that was something I just noticed the way we were talking today, and the kindness of everybody to each other, talking to each other. You know, excuse me, I didn't mean to cut over you. You know, just being kind and being nice. That's a dying art
Yes.
too. So I'm really appreciative of that. And
Yes,
you guys,
Ted.
next week, next Thursday, we're gonna be doing bingo.
Yes.
So if you haven't
Yeah.
got your bingo sheet, you can go by Darnell. They have 30 sheets in an envelope. They're outside in the turnaround in a plastic bin. All you gotta do is stick your hand in and get your envelope out. We do bingo, and then we will probably do 2 or 3 games. I'm not sure, depending on how quick the bingo goes. We send out a prize to the winner of the game. It will be fun, and we're gonna be doing that. That's next the Thursday coming, and then the week after that, we're gonna be doing a scavenger hunt. So start looking around your house for all those crazy things.
Are you
But
gonna send us a list of things to look
Yeah, they
for
on
or
the
no? Or you, oh, okay. Oh,
We
you
will,
just gonna
when
tell
we get
us
ready to
right
do the scavenger, we'll
instantly?
put the list on here that day. And you
oh,
have
okay.
a time limit to try to find those things.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Okay?
Buffy.
So you're saying it's not going to be on a class schedule or anything? It's just going to.
Yeah, it's on the
It's
schedule.
on
Yeah,
the
it's
schedule.
on
Oh,
the
it's already on
schedule.
there.
It's
Oh,
on there.
okay.
They sent out a new schedule, I think, and it should be on there. But
It
yeah,
is.
karaoke
I never
will
get the new
today.
schedule.
Next Thursday will be bingo. Okay?
If you had an email address, it came out on the 31st.
Yeah, that
Andre
sounds right.
Yes.
Andre Gregory put it out on the 31st,
Yeah, I didn't.
and the karaoke, bingo, and the scavenger hunt is on there.
At
Okay.
what time?
Huh?
At what time?
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock.
Oh, see, we have an exercise class with Aya too at 10.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, you
Yeah.
know,
You
it's
gotta
only so.
flip a coin.
Yeah, that's true.
Flip a coin. Okay. So I'll see y'all Friday for exercise, and see you next week. Have a great, safe weekend. Keep those hands clean.
Okay.
Keep those
Okay.
masks on.
And your face covered if you
And
go
your
out.
face covered. If you're wearing a shield, you need a mask on, covering your nose and your mouth also. Take
Right.
care, everybody.
Yes.
Love you.
All right.
Bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye,
Bye.
Renee.
Thanks.
Be
I
safe
mean,
this
thanks.
weekend.
It was
Bye-bye.
very
Stay safe.
interesting today.
Brenda
Bye.
Valerie.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye.